Huh.
Huh.
It isn't.
That's weird. We seem to be, I want to say
I
live?
think we might be live. I think we
Is that
might
the right
just be
word
live
for
again.
it?
I think that sounds right.
Okay. Well, I guess now that we're here, do you want to do like
Like
a
maybe a show or
show or
something?
something? I
I
guess we
don't
could do a
know.
show.
I think that makes sense. You know, I think that's only right for us to do that. My cough came back a little bit today.
Oh, welcome back. Welcome back,
I
Kyle.
don't know
Hey,
why. I don't know why. Whatever.
the show with the guest star Austin's cough.
My cough has entered the building. However, we will be chatting with a guest tomorrow on this very show at this very time.
That's right.
Desmond Dew of No Sleep Creative is going to be hanging with us tomorrow, and we'll have some juicy questions. You guys will ask some juicy questions.
It's going to be a good time.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Otherwise, today's show, we are going to chat just a wee bit about how to animate like a designer. I've had way too many conversations recently about just feels like most people in the motion design industry, or at least like people aspiring to get into it, don't really give a shit about the design of it all and just kind of expect to be good motion designers without knowing how to do that part. So we're going to talk about that. Then that will likely segue into a breakdown, live breakdown, which we'll also use to probably get a little YouTube video cut together and whatever of the loop that I posted yesterday. What? Austin posted a loop? Did those words just come out of my mouth? What? No. You guys are nuts. You guys are crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just kidding. That spot is now being changed with gaslighting chat. So, we'll be doing that instead. After that,
chat.
of course, crits and Rex, as we do. And it's going to be great. Cool.
Crits and Rex and Crits and Rex.
Well, let's talk about how to animate like a designer, and this comes from a question that I had DM'd to me yesterday. Real quick, I need to find that.
This is the Daily Motion Show, which shortened as DMs.
DMs
so
down. I'm getting down in the DMs. Here it is.
DM us
They
with
said,
your questions.
Hey man, I have a question. Do you work with a grid system and an overall systemic approach when you create these short and long motion design pieces? I asked because I haven't really been able to approach motion design systemically without the traditional approach of designing each important frame and all that. If you talked about this in one of your live streams, I would rather watch it than have you answer this. Of course, I love your work. To which I responded, I will discuss this on the show tomorrow. Here's the thing, and I feel like I am particularly geared towards this sort of question because I do feel like I have a system when I'm designing basically any of the stuff, which I know sounds like an obvious thing, but everything I'm doing is math based. I mean, I would say 95% of all design decisions I made are just because I like back it up with it's this ratio of this size of this other object that I created or whatever. Usually what I do, and I'll pull up at the after party, I'll pull up my storyboard from the last loop as reference for this real quick. Here we go. Sorry, I'm all confused. There we go. All right, let's go over to me. Let's pull this up. Which, first of all, I love that so many of these scenes went by so fast in this video. First of all, I guess we can just watch it to get reference. So just kidding. 1 second, everybody. Here we go. Which Noah so kindly wrecked yesterday.
I sure did.
All right. This is the video in question. There you go. It loops. It's a fun time. We enjoy it.
Must be sharing your screen and all that.
Well, I'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, once you get to the whatever breakdown or whatever.
Oh, hold on. I have to move my shit over now.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right, here we go. Sorry, everybody. Now we're actually doing the thing I said I'd do. I swear. Okay, so you can look at any one of these frames and there is something that was based on math going on here. So usually what I will do, especially when I've got like big sections like these in a grid, I'll actually just go, okay, what's the size of this whole canvas? Okay, 1920 by 1080, great. Let me take that size, or sorry, 1080 by 1920. Let me take that and then just go to this panel over here, our little transform properties, and just say, okay, how about I get 1/5 of that height? And that's what this rectangle is going to be. But I'm never really just sitting there and being like, maybe it should be like this size, and just kind of awkwardly like scooting these around or whatever. I just type in numbers until I get something that I feel like looks right to what I was trying to do. And then sometimes there's things like these where it's just, I will kind of sit there and resize type just based off of like, does this feel like it sits in the scene well? But most of the time I am just taking whatever object I'm going to make is just based on some ratio of the canvas. And like, I make sure that I've got like spacing in between these objects is also a certain like numerical ratio of these things. And I don't know, I kind of just maybe sometimes as a crutch just let the math do the designing for me, where I'm just like, well, I hit divide by 3 and therefore it's a ratio of this size, so it's probably gonna look good, and usually it does.
I think whatever gets you to a quick decision is honestly pretty valuable and effective.
It removes the imposter syndrome, you know?
So many creative processes is sitting there like resizing. I mean, I've fallen prey to such things before, and I make the best things when I'm just like moving on, doing this.
Yep.
Ooh, what if I do this? I move it maybe like 3 times, and then I'm like, great, moving on.
I mean, people sometimes ask how I'm able to animate and design some of this shit so fast, and really it is just because when I am in there, it is just like step after step after step. I am not belaboring over anything really. Most of the times, the thing that I spend the most time on is just like, are these color combinations the ones that would look best in this situation? Or like, does this font look right? But if it's anything about like the actual composition, it's way easier for me because I'm just like, okay, I'll try this number instead of this number. And I do the same thing in After Effects. I'm never really sitting here just like dragging stuff around with this, or just like grabbing the thing and moving it all that much. Usually I'm in here typing in numbers. Like I'll do like plus 200 on the X or something or whatever, but like it's all just based on math. And not necessarily that there's like a right formula for it or anything, but it just makes things way easier to just be able to type in a number and know that it's generally going to be spaced well and that compositionally it will work because of it being related mathematically to this other size of something that you already made, you know?
That's beautiful.
It makes
you
it
just have that
way easier. Now, that being said, more generally, it's just taking those sorts of principles that I would normally take in design and then just using that all the way through my animation workflow. Like, there's really no difference between me designing and me animating. I am always designing in a way that would work for animation, and I am always thinking of animations in a way that I could design, like, work with design. They're both very intertwined. And I think lots of people in the industry make the mistake of just being like, well, I took my School of Motion course and I made a reel, therefore I am now a motion designer. But it's like, no, if you can't design, you're an animator. You have to also be able to do the other half of that title, motion designer, in order to be able to call yourself that, I think, effectively. But that's me. Anyway. Let's break this thing down after
it's strange,
you say what you're
gonna say. It's strange how much it feels like good animation and good design kind of comes down to just having confidence when you make it.
Yeah.
For me, that's been like a big thing, and that's such a parallel in like social scenarios of like you can mess up, but if you have confidence, it's fine. And so if you like have a basic idea of what you're up to and then you just have a whole bunch of confidence, it's probably going to turn out awesome, or at least very interesting.
Yeah.
But if you don't have confidence, that just continuously shoots you in the foot. It's like being poisoned in Pokemon.
When you can
You
see
walk a
it,
couple feet and it goes, eh.
you can see it in the
slowly
work.
degrades.
The
Yeah.
lack of conviction will show because it takes having that confidence in whatever you're doing is the only way to make stuff that will be like, oh, that's really interesting. You know, otherwise you're playing it too tepid and you're just gonna end up making a generic blob of whatever felt safest. You know.
Yeah.
Or you'll
Yeah,
just stop
have
making
that
things
thing.
altogether because you'll be so
That's the worst.
paralyzed by your imposter syndrome. Which, fuck that. I'd rather not. So I just say, hee little numbers, and then it makes it way easier for me.
Yeah, take risks. Use whatever you need to feel confident in whatever you're doing. And for Austin, that seems to be numbers
Math.
in a lot of cases.
Math. Yeah.
So do it up. Just like get excited. That's some hot tips right there. That's some good advice. If I
Boom.
do say so myself. I'm gonna take that advice later today.
Num
Thank you very
num.
much.
Eat it up. Eat it up. Okay. Let's break this thing down, shall we? There's so many little
I'd love to break it
fun
down.
little tidbits. I love that there are some scenes that just go by so fast that you couldn't even tell what was actually written there. Like I have this whole like stack of shapes that just says "Please buy my shit," but you wouldn't even really be able to tell because the extra animation goes by so fast. But you know,
Also, I get caught on my, so it says, "Please buy my."
my.
And then I see the bottom, and it's like, shit.
Shit. So just conceptually, this was one of the first animations I've done in a really long time outside of client stuff where I really felt like I had a solid concept before I even started designing or animating. I listened to the audio over and over and over again, and it sounded like at the very beginning, you know how on Spotify in the app, if you don't have premium and the ad comes in, it's like, want to break from the ads, and it's got that same like rise at the beginning. It had a very similar intro to this soundtrack that this sound designer made for me. And because of that, I was immediately like, well, okay, that phrase has to be in there somewhere. And then I was like, wait a second. If I do this sort of style, I could turn this into like this anti-ad ad. And it all started to come together. I basically just had these two frames in mind and filled everything else in after that. Because it's, you want to break from the ads, and then there's like all this sound going on and it gets really chaotic. And then there's like just a little note from like a flute or something. And I'm like, come on. Want to break from the ads? Question mark. Fine. Period. Like there's a fun concept there. You know, like the video's having a conversation with the viewer and whatever. I don't want to get too design professor sounding because I hate that shit. But
Got a little narrative, and it's cute.
it's got a little narrative and it's fun. It's a good time. We actually had this brief that we were going to use for something review related a while ago. We were gonna make this video with just type and no shapes at all. And so we found like a couple references style wise, and then we were like, I don't know, we need some fonts to use. And so we were like, what's a really weird font pairing? So we found this really odd, like psychedelic font from Adobe Fonts or something. And then this one's Google Fonts or whatever. And then of course our Space Grotesque vibe. And just to throw everybody the fuck off, I put in wingdings, you know? And so I was like, well, I know I want to have some type here and I kind of want to do this funky style. And I was like, these fonts are perfect. Like this works great for this. And I could use wingdings to do like this boiling of the type and just make this really interesting texture that I otherwise couldn't get. And I thought it would be a very bold choice to use wingdings in an actual project and that it would be a fun time. I should have used Comic Sans or something too, just to really oversell it. But I like how it turned out. But anyway, the gist here was really just, or my goal was just, hey, this is a lot of colors. Figure out how to use them over top of each other well and not have it feel like a cluster. And that took just like coming into this scene first and being like, okay, I want to have all these question marks duplicate themselves after we get this bit here. What colors and which fonts can work on each other and so on. And so there was a bit of testing that went on there. And then I got to just sit around and design a couple like pop-up windows for like fake ads or whatever. It was a great time. I was having so much fun designing this thing. And that's, I mean, there's more I could go into there, but the animation has more like tangible things to go through. So for anything that was just animated with the type, usually I was just going in and animating the source text like every 3 frames. Because the whole comp was like 18 FPS or something. So every 3 frames was a relatively easy thing to go and do as far as like intervals go or whatever. I mean, same thing with just like spacing out keyframes. I always do it based on math. I'm like, well, it's this ratio of the total number of frames in a second or whatever, you know? Anyway, it's a fun time, just like the source text changing, and it's just wild how much that can just help the animation. Because I mean, if there was none of this here, it just kind of sits, you know, and it's just not quite as interesting. And it was a fun thing to like be able to give people enough of a glimpse of it to where they could tell what it said, but also still like completely breaking it up with this wingding shit, which is just completely nonsensical. Anyway, then I'd always wanted to do one of these little magnifying things. There's no real reason for it to be there, but I was like, I don't know, here, give me a big rectangle, duplicate this ads type, and then just only mask it inside of that shape and have it be larger or something. Thought it was fun. Let's see, are there any parts that are particularly difficult with this? The actual animation took me almost no time. The designing took much longer on this one. Purely because the actual, I don't know. I think the concept was just so strong that it easily carried. The actual animation didn't have to be that complicated. But each of these, it's literally just different rows of type masked into these rows. And what I did originally was actually have, I mean, you can see with how these are parented. I had each of these parented to this bar shape layer. And then that would be able to use hold keyframes to like swap positions down the stack, so they could like, the pink one could end up in like the 4th slot and the blue one goes to the top slot or something. But it just looked so chaotic. It was really odd. There's a lot of colors and stuff going on, and I was already gonna have all those pop-ups, so it just got to be too much. But it was easy enough to basically just slide some text layers along inside of this thing, and it just, you know, nice colors. It was fun. Then the pop-ups were a little bit more difficult to figure out. They actually weren't hard to animate in terms of just like getting them to appear in the frame. All I did was just do a color overlay that went from white to yellow and then turned off, so that it would kind of do this like flickering in thing, and then it scales up. And then it slides off the screen. But the difficult part was that I wasn't going to do that a billion times. Like I needed this to feel like it was getting overflown. It was getting overblown with ads. And I was not going to duplicate all those shape layers myself and manually do that. So what I did was just not animate any of these ads inside of this giant pre-comp. I mean, it's like 16,000 pixels wide. But then I just slid that pre-comp across the screen. And then duplicated that a couple times, and it worked pretty well. So that wasn't too bad in the end, but it took me a while to get it actually looking right. This was really easy. I just had a little tiny bit of detail where I had this, like the period next to it kind of bounce up. But that was pretty easy as well. This bit was all happening very, very fast. Like this scene has way more detail, but it's quite literally like 7 frames long or something. But basically type comes in. These are supposed to represent like the little dots for when somebody else is typing in your chat and whatever. And that works pretty well. They all slide up on a null. Then there's some type that's masked inside down here. And then I had to find little tiny ways to keep the momentum going here. So like you'll see that this type like everything starts sliding over to the left, so that when everything appears here smaller and left aligned, it makes more sense to your eye. Then everything slides off to the right. This thing I wish was a longer scene. Like this alone could be like its own loop if you just let it go for like 5 seconds. But I had to make these 2 shapes here for the eye. One where it's just normal, the pupil's normal, and then you've got it kind of like dinged in. so that I could literally just like throw these ads at it and just have like this guy's eyes just getting like bombarded by all these ads and whatever. And it was just fun to make an eyeball trampoline, you know, like what the hell?
Eyeball trampoline.
It was a fun time.
Sometimes you gotta make an eyeball trampoline.
And it's got all those ding-dings in the sound. So I originally was gonna have like somebody's head in the frame or something, and you'd be able to see the head get like dong 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 with it like flying past them, but that was gonna be a little too literal and detailed of a depiction of something compared to all the abstract shit I had in the rest of the video. What else? Okay, yeah, and then from there, this is literally just it scrolling down. There are pre-comps in here, and then this is what the actual thing would have been if it just had enough time to sit there. That's it. Easy peasy.
That's it.
And then you've got, what else? This thing, it's ultimately I did hand animate all of those shapes, and they are all on one shape layer. So yikes. I also had their color change the entire time with hold keyframes.
They would be on one shape layer.
But I animated this scene, I think, second, so it was much easier to get through the rest of the animation after that. And it wasn't really that complicated of a scene, it just took a while. And then the very end was also a little complicated, actually. Ball comes down, well, we got the ball flying down here, and then need to match cut that. Bet nobody even noticed that it said shoot on the screen while it's getting turned off, because that's just 2 frames. But
yeah, I saw that.
Anyway,
Nice.
ball comes down, you get 1 frame of the button squishing, and then this like base plate of the button squishing out, and then again, like that happens a little bit more. You're getting the like little CRT TV screen, little like blip and flash to turn off starting, and then the ball is just sort of flying out of frame and back down again. And that's it. I mean, there's a couple more things here, like this little wire on the side like shoots out whenever the button gets pressed. There's just like little fun details like that, and then it just goes back to the beginning, which in my opinion, one of the smoothest match cuts I've ever done. That feels so slick, man. It just goes back to the beginning again. You're just sucked back into it, you know? It feels great. It feels really good. I think this is it's easily top 3 things I've ever made. I don't know what the other 2 would be, but I don't quite want to call it my favorite, but I'm really happy with it. And that's the breakdown. There it is.
Breakdown.
Enjoy. I hope that was.
Can you play just the fine scene for me?
Yes. Hold on. There you go.
I love that. That's my favorite scene.
It's so fun.
I love changing between fonts, animating. I think that's one of the coolest things. I don't know why. It just
feels cool, you know? Just feels good.
So good. Hit the breakdown. Yeah.
But that's it, y'all. There you go. Let's answer some cues from chat, shall we?
I would love to answer some cues from chat. Chat, what do you got? What do you got, chat?
Sir Cat says, even though I hate designing, I'm trying to learn it in a proper way. It is nice to hear that I am on the right path. Cool.
That is nice to hear. Why do you hate designing? Designing is so fun.
Well, it doesn't move, you see.
You can do anything.
Imagine knowing it could move before you knew it could not move. That must suck, you know? That's gotta
It's
stink.
such a good time.
Hamza says, I downloaded the video, put it in After Effects, and scrolled through it to catch all the details. Nothing is escaping me. That's hilarious. I hope you found some goodies. Christian said, I knew paying premium would ruin my inspiration. I have premium too. I don't know. You get bombarded with it for years not having premium, and it sticks with you for some reason. Umar says, is sound done first or later? This time, well, most of the time it's done first. We really like animating to sound and having that guide our visual direction. Felix says, how do I find music for short loops? Follow the passion, my friend. Whatever music you like will probably yield better results.
Follow that passion, my guy.
Mr. Keyframe says the font's animating. Was that using a plugin like Variable? Nope, just animating the hold keyframes of source text. That's it. I gave it like 3 or 4 keyframes, and then I would just copy paste those over and over again until the layer stopped.
You don't need plugins.
It was easy peasy.
Day.
And on that note, you know what we do need? Are you ready? You ready? You ready for this? Hold on, I gotta change my screen share.
Of course I'm ready for this.
You guys ready for some crits? You guys ready for
crits,
today's crits?
I think it's time for crits. Put
We
your
got
crit glasses
some good
on,
ones.
your crasses.
Put your crasses on, and let's crit some shit, shall we? First one is from Mo, and I will preface this in saying that in his submission, he did say that this is his first thing he's animated in over 1.5 years of taking a break from motion design. So we should roast the shit out of it. Send him back to no motion design land.
So cruel.
Here we go.
Let's see what we got.
Let me refresh it just to make sure that we're seeing the beginning of it. The drama. Goodness.
Goodness gracious. Me oh my.
Animate that gradient in that orb. Do it.
For real.
It just sits there and rotates the whole time. Doesn't make sense. Because the way you have the gradient set up makes it look like it would be lighting on the object, but then it just rotates and moves and kind of does whatever, so the illusion's kind of lost. But then it starts to make it feel like a PNG if you don't animate the gradient on there. You know, it feels too static despite it moving. You know.
Here's a little piece of advice in the animation for y'all. Don't necessarily go with your first instinct. I'm talking specifically about it flickering at the end and turning kind of grayscale. Like that would be the first instinct to be like, oh, it's whatever, to get that vibe across. But that kind of thing doesn't feel like it matches the style. Maybe if you like flickered it off and maybe like it changed to like a little outline or there's some other way to like flicker it that could be a lot more interesting. So
it could be like a cool blue or something. It could be very similar to the background color.
Yeah, it could get glitchy, but like take care in your animations to see if the actual animations themselves are consistent, not just the style in the visuals, and how you're treating like the objects is consistent.
And speaking of the consistency of the style and visuals, there's one particular shot that threw me off. I mean,
there's a couple that threw me off.
I mean, there's
pause
more to get into, but
this one right here, pause.
That's not going to be very helpful because it's.
You'll just notice that these are not aligned properly. They're not perfectly radial, and that's really noticeable.
Because you're getting this like rectangle that's inside of here, rather than it being like all tied to the center. Also, you can kind of see them like stop rotating before the scene changes. You know, there's like one extra frame there.
Take care in your match cuts, y'all.
Which one was I think? I think it's right after this one where it turns into this. Yeah, this feels just very different from the other stuff that you've been doing. We haven't seen like white embedded inside of an object like this. Like this almost starts to look like an eyeball, you know, which might be the concept, but feels too much like iconography compared to the rest of it, I guess. Just feels a little odd. And then right back into this guy. I love the atmosphere that you're giving it, though. I mean, you're giving it some real intense pacing. I don't know why we just get the title for, like, one frame at the very beginning, though.
Yeah, that never comes back, does it?
No, it doesn't. KUK says, I can never get my work critiqued. Why? I got here when it was just 3 people on the stream before starting. Well, your work might just be down the list on the form. People who submit earlier get shown earlier than people who submit later. I don't know. That's just how it is. Yeah, you really got to animate those gradients just a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
that's my main beef with it. I guess other thing, when you have stuff that's this central to the composition and nothing ever goes over the borders of the frame, it feels very like base level MoGraphy in terms of design, because it doesn't feel like there's actually a bigger universe beyond the borders of your frame. It feels like everything is very stuck inside of this like composition, you know? It feels manufactured in that way. Doesn't really feel like it's being lived in super well. Could be nice to have some things like cross over the edges just to really sell that there is more to this, you know? Because like you've got these and then you do this cut backwards. That feels good, but like the rest of the video, it feels like it's all just kind of stuck there. Like you just pinned it all to the center, you know? But I think that's it for my boom roast. However, Barbara says, why don't kleptomaniacs understand puns?
Good question.
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. Thank you, Mo Boom Roasted. This one is someone's reel. They wanted to get our opinion on it before they make any other changes to it because they really want us to roast it. So, we shall.
Okay.
First of all, it's 54 seconds. We will see if I make it through the 54 seconds before hovering my mouse down here. Sorry, it's too quiet. My bad. I thought that it was going to be louder than that.
It's kind of fun.
We're definitely going to get copyright for this.
All right, that's me.
30. That's a well-cut reel, dog.
Yeah,
that's a well-cut reel. You know what? I thought a couple times about hovering my mouse to see how long it was, but it wasn't the usual thing that gets, Barbara says, because they take everything literally. So, all right. Usually when we're giving feedback on reels, the big things that we talk about are like, the cuts are too long. Like, we see too much of each scene. That's not the case here. I think there are a couple videos where you wanted to use just like one too many scenes from them or something to show in the reel. You probably could have gotten away with like using 2 or 3 instead of sometimes there were like 4 or 5 in there, depending on the video. But in terms of how long the actual shots are, I think it feels good. I felt pretty engaged that whole time.
Yeah, you've got some really cool work in here.
You do.
That's pretty solid. Pretty solid. I like this Sigma commercial thing. I think that's kind of cool.
Also, it's got good energy to it. It's like music is such a subjective thing, of course, but I feel like there are so many reels that are just boring. Like I'm like, why did you pick this music for this? You know, you want people falling asleep? I don't know. Like, but I think yours keeps the energy of the reel pretty well. Even if it gives us a copyright claim.
Cool, yeah.
But
Good
yeah,
stuff, my guy.
you could
Good stuff.
probably shorten the intro a little bit. It feels like it goes on a little bit long, but not really. I don't know. It's kind of
solid.
iffy. It's a good reel.
I don't really have any strong feedback for this. Well done.
Boom roasted, except
Not really.
just like barely
Well, kinda.
singed, if at all.
You've been lightly seared.
Well done. I hope that was
Nice.
helpful. Now, all right, this one was submitted like 5 separate times. Y'all,
Wow.
if we haven't gotten to it yet, it's just because it's further down the list, okay? That's all. We will get to everybody's. It's fine, but you don't have to submit it like 5 times. This one was Halloween animation.
This was submitted 5 times.
Uh-huh. People really wanted us to roast this one. So let's
Was
do
it
that.
people or was it one person?
One person who made this wanted us to really roast it.
Dude, what's up with the girl's hair on the right?
She's a witch. And,
Oh.
you know, animators got to animate. Although, surprisingly, with the sheer amount of stuff on the screen, I am very surprised that I can only really tell that, like, 3 or 4 of them are animated.
Yeah. The amount that things are animated are not very consistent.
No. No, they are not. Also,
yeah, I don't have a bunch to say about this.
I don't either. See, that's the that's the thing. Like, there is just like general animation thoughts that we can give here, but like, if it's something that's just like cool, this was fun, it's harder to critique because we can't really tell what the purpose of it was. You know.
It feels kind of static.
It feels like more could be done here. It doesn't really hold my interest. Like, it's not animated enough, and I'm saying this differently than just, okay, I took each of these things that I designed and animated them in here and put them in here. So like, as long as things are moving, then it's fine. I'm saying like the overall composition feels too static, you know? I feel like there could have been more to this. Like, I think DK's done it really well before.
Yeah,
where
DK's a great example.
You could
like some screen shake.
You could
there's some
segment
stuff happening.
You could also segment this out, so maybe like some of these get like you get to see a little part of this grid that's got like a way closer up view of this that's got like more of an animation to it, instead of just like the same thing repeated over and over again. Or you get like the camera pans like underground and you see that there's like even more, like there's bones and stuff beneath here or something, like a little skeleton dance party or some shit, I don't know. And then it comes back up to the top. But it just feels like you took the time to go in and want to animate like a bunch of these little elements, but it still feels like it's not moving, you know?
It feels very disconnected. None of the things are interacting with each other. So overall, it just feels like an illustration that has a little bit of movement on it.
It feels overall, like
it doesn't feel like the animation actually makes necessarily a lot of sense.
It feels like an animatronic compared to it feels like a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic compared to like one of the Disney animatronics, you know, like a Disney one, they've got like the Spider-Man thing that like does full flips and shit, you know, like across a ravine. But this is very much like pose A, pose B, pose A, pose B. You know, like it's just not that strong conceptually in terms of the actual animation. I think the design, like the illustration looks neat, but if you're gonna animate it, I feel like there just could have been something more going on here.
Boom, roasted and toasted.
Boom,
also, the composition's a little heavy on the right.
True. But also, I don't mind it. Now,
Really,
do
like,
you have some freaking Rex today?
oh, dude, I do not have them pulled up.
I mean, I don't
But
either. I'm doing that now, though.
some freaking Rex today.
Heck yeah. Oh, wait, I already
Freaking
did
Rex
that one, so I
today.
need to do this one. We're getting through 2 more motion reels from me, both of which are bangers from a while ago. Hot minute. If either of these people are watching the stream, they will probably find it funny. Here we go. What up, Amin? How you doing? Here's your 2020 reel. I've had it saved. And we're gonna watch it. Here it is. It's rec time. Oh wait, it's rec time. We don't need sunglasses anymore. Boom.
Okay.
And 2020, this man was already having a reel that was 32 seconds. He was on it. He knew.
He was ahead of the game.
And here it is.
Dude, that was solid.
It's a good reel, man. It's just a good reel. The reel is good when it makes you feel like their work is something bigger than it is, you know? It's good. It's the vibe. And then we've got this one from Will Burkhardt. I believe he's at Buck now. And here it is. The speed ramps, dog. It feels good.
That was commotion right there.
That was commotion right there.
Yeah.
They had such a like OP group that year, man.
Yeah.
So many of those people went on to work at big studios and do pretty
I know
big
that
things.
font. That's a cool font.
Boom! My Rex. Boom.
what it's
Boom loved it. There you go.
Boom loved it.
2 more reels for y'all to enjoy.
All right.
Is it Happy Joy Joy Noah time?
It is Happy JoJo Noah time.
Fabuloso. Oh, that's a good call.
This was
That's
for
a good call.
This was for one of our one of the submissions and one of our past review challenges. Shout out Gordon and that whole team and Ven.
I think this one was just Gordon and Ven.
Just Gordon and Ven.
Now, I don't know if y'all noticed in that first shot. We sure didn't for a while. Noah and I are present as statues with plants on our heads from the old studio.
This is an absolute banger.
It's so good.
By some real treats.
It's so good. Still kills me, dude. Oh my god. The whole vibe is just so ridiculous, man. I love it.
Dude,
I love it.
Especially that first section. The shine right here. I love it. Love it.
It's so just like it's a good one.
Love does exist.
It's a good one.
That was the theme of this was glint.
That's why you had the sparkles and such.
That's why it was so sparkly. Absolutely fantastic job.
We'll have Gordo on the show, I believe, in early June.
He's a swell fella. Go check him out.
Yep.
And I have one more rec for you, actually.
Oh yeah, I believe it. Of
This
course.
was by
Why?
Poir.
I need to ask her to be on the show. What the hell, man?
Dude, you do. Oh my god, yeah.
I'll add her to the list.
Get her on the show. She's French. She's very cool. We've chatted with her before once. And this was for a motion design festival. Check it out.
You're wondering why everybody does the twisty type now. It's her fault.
Yeah, it's absolutely her fault.
Banger.
Hell yeah.
Banger.
Hell yeah. The music on that one too? Come on.
So good, dude.
That's so good. That's so good.
It's a
She's
banger.
fantastic. That's her name. Go check her out.
And on that note, that's the show. But you know what needs to be done. You know, like if you want to get your work critiqued, the link's in the description. The Discord's down there. You can join that and have conversations and have a fun time. What's the other thing we usually say? Oh, yeah. Use hashtag Daily Emotion Show whenever you post on socials, and we just might wreck it. That's it.
We just might do it.
We'll see y'all tomorrow.
For Desmond Dude. Check
Desmond Dude.
that out. You're going to want to be there. It's going to be swell.
Be there or be a linear keyframe.
Ooh, that's worse than square.
Yeah, I know. That feels so much worse, doesn't it?